The crate had been marked for careful handling, but somewhere along the journey, it was placed on its end. Inside, Henry Brown was trapped head down, his body compressed into a space only a few feet across. He later described the pressure becoming so severe that his eyes seemed ready to burst. He could make a sound. He could reveal that the package contained a living man. But discovery could destroy the escape and expose the people who had helped him. So the handlers heard nothing. They saw freight, and the man inside had no way to make them see anything else. This was not the United States mail. Brown had been shipped as freight through Adams Express, a private package network connected to wagons, trains, steamboats, ferries, and other transfers. The system could move a sealed crate rapidly from Richmond toward Philadelphia. It could not guarantee that the crate stayed upright. Brown's concealment was the plan's protection. It was also the condition that might kill him. To understand why he accepted that bargain, the story has to begin before the lid closed. Brown had been born enslaved in Louisa County, Virginia, in 1815 or 1816. After the death of an enslaver in 1830, he was separated from most of his family and sent to Richmond, where he became a skilled tobacco worker. That work placed him inside a busy commercial city. It did not give him control of his own life. The wages he could sometimes keep, the movements he could sometimes make, and the relationships he built all remained vulnerable to someone else's legal claim of ownership. Around 1836, Brown married Nancy, an enslaved woman held by another owner. They had 3 children and maintained a rented household. Brown made payments connected with their maintenance and Nancy's hire. None of it gave the family legal protection. In August 1848, Nancy and the children were sold and taken away toward North Carolina. Biographical scholarship reports that Nancy was pregnant with a 4th child. The violence fell on every member of the family: Nancy, the children, and Brown, who could work to support a home but could not prevent slavery from dismantling it. Brown later wrote that he saw them carried away. In his account, when he appealed to his enslaver, the answer was, "You can get another wife." That is dialogue reported by Brown, not an independently recorded exchange. But the sale itself is not in doubt, and Brown's narratives make it the decisive pressure behind his escape. The accessible evidence does not establish what later became of Nancy or the children sold away in 1848. Their disappearance from the record is not a conclusion about their lives. It is a limit on what this story can honestly recover. Brown's response was not to wait for permission. He later described himself as resolved to conquer or die. The plan required 2 principal collaborators. James C. A. Smith was a free black choir associate. Samuel A. Smith was a white Richmond tradesman who handled correspondence and shipping arrangements. The 2 Smiths were unrelated. And Samuel's role resists a clean, heroic label. He accepted payment for his help and had himself owned enslaved people. Brown remained the person making the decision, supplying much of the money, entering the crate, and accepting the physical risk. He also needed a reason to be absent from the tobacco factory without immediately causing alarm. Brown said he took an injured finger and deliberately made it worse with oil of vitriol so that he would be allowed to miss work. He said he had saved $166 and agreed to pay $86 to the white collaborator. Every step narrowed his options. Money that could not purchase security became escape money. An injury became an alibi. The plan was already doing damage before the journey began. In late March 1849, Brown folded himself into a wooden crate roughly 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and about 2.5 feet deep. The exact measurements differ slightly among the surviving accounts, but every version leaves a brutally small space. Brown's 1851 account says the crate had 3 air holes. He carried water in a bladder and a gimlet in case more holes became necessary. though the evidence does not show that he bored any during the journey. Then the lid was secured, and the package entered the express system. From that moment, Brown no longer controlled the route, the timing, the crate's orientation, or the people handling it. From Richmond, the crate went by rail toward the Aquia Creek connection on the Potomac, then by steamboat to Washington, and onward through additional rail, ferry, wagon, and express transfers to Philadelphia. The intermediate sequence is not equally certain at every point. For Brown, each transfer meant another loss of control. Each new vehicle meant new hands. Each new set of hands saw an ordinary package with an instruction about which side should remain up. The instruction repeatedly failed. At the Potomac transfer, according to Brown's accounts, the box was left standing on the end that placed his head downward. The pressure built. His face and neck swelled. He feared he would die in the crate, not because the plan had been discovered, but because it was working too well. No one handling the package knew to respond to the person inside. Silence protected James, Samuel, and the receiving network ahead. Silence also removed the simplest way Brown could ask for relief. Then 2 men needed somewhere to sit. They turned the crate onto its side and used it as a seat. They did not know that this casual movement relieved the man inside from the position threatening his life. It is an astonishing piece of documented irony, but not a joke at Brown's expense. 2 men, unaware that he was there, had accidentally saved him. The relief was real. It was not safety. The crate still had to pass through Washington, and Brown still had no control over what the next handlers would do. At Washington, the box was unloaded roughly, dealing the crate another severe blow. Then came a quieter threat. The crate might be held for a later train. After hours folded inside, delay was not an inconvenience. It meant more confinement, more thirst, more time for the package to be questioned, and more time before anyone expecting Brown could open it. An employee insisted that express freight had to go forward. Once again, the commercial procedure was both enemy and rescue. The network had inverted Brown because it treated him like a package. Now it protected his movement for the same reason. The crate continued toward Philadelphia. By the time it arrived, Brown had remained confined for roughly 26 to 27 hours. Transfer after transfer, survival depended on remaining hidden from the very people whose actions determined whether he lived. Philadelphia should be where uncertainty ends. Instead, even the receiving room comes to us in 2 versions. Brown's early narratives say the crate was taken to a correspondence house where friends waited. William Still, writing in 1872, remembered the anti-slavery office at 107 North 5th Street behind a locked door, with himself and a small receiving group present. Still had been part of Philadelphia's anti-slavery network, but his detailed reconstruction was written 23 years later. In either version, abolitionists had arranged a private place to receive the package and did not yet know what condition they would find inside. Brown's accounts describe a cautious knock on the crate and the question, "Is all right within?" From inside came the answer, "All right." The lid was opened. The accounts agree that Brown emerged weak and soon sang a hymn of thanksgiving. They differ on the exact sequence. Brown's narratives include an inability to stand and a brief swoon. Still later remembered Brown rising, offering a handshake, and saying, "How do you do, gentlemen?" without a swoon. Those memories cannot be blended into a single certain tableau. What survives across them is the release, the answer from within, the opened crate, the weakened body, and the song. Brown later wrote that he had risen, as it were, from the dead. Abolitionist visual culture took up the same metaphor in prints titled The Resurrection of Henry Box Brown. Those lithographs are commemorative images, not photographs of the opening. They cannot prove who stood where, what anyone wore, or how the room looked. but the metaphor belongs to the history. Brown had entered the freight system under a law that treated him as property. He emerged in Philadelphia able to answer in his own voice. The crate journey was over. The reach of slavery was not. Brown had survived the method once. That did not make it safe. On May 8, 1849, Samuel A. Smith tried to help 2 additional freedom seekers escape in boxes. The attempt failed. The 2 men were captured and returned to bondage. Their later lives are not established in this evidence. Samuel was arrested and in November sentenced to 6.5 years in the Virginia State Penitentiary. A later report described total confinement longer than that sentence because it included pretrial time. 1 crate had reached abolitionists. The next attempt ended in capture and prison. Later that same month, Brown was speaking at anti-slavery meetings in New England. He soon used box as part of his public name, though no single naming moment is settled. In September 1849, Charles Stearns wrote and co-published a narrative shaped from Brown's statement. The story became testimony, print, song, and public argument. Popular shorthand says Brown mailed himself to freedom. The sharper truth is more revealing. A private freight network unknowingly carried a man beyond a system that claimed to own him. Proceeds from the narrative helped Brown and his collaborators create Henry Box Brown's Mirror of Slavery, a moving panorama that opened in Boston on April 11, 1850. The panorama itself does not survive as a verified complete sequence, so the details of what audiences saw panel by panel are now lost. Its place in Brown's career is clearer. The escape was no longer only something that had happened to him inside a closed box. He was presenting its meaning to audiences and using the extraordinary method to expose the ordinary violence that had made it necessary. Philadelphia had not erased the federal claim that could be used to seize Brown. That danger existed before 1850. The Fugitive Slave Act enacted that September intensified recovery procedures and barred an alleged fugitive's testimony at the hearing. Brown had already faced assault and fear of recapture. In October, he left for Britain. Freedom, for him, required another departure, not inside a crate this time, but across the Atlantic, because remaining visible in the United States had become more dangerous. In Britain, Brown continued exhibiting the panorama and published a new narrative in Manchester in 1851. Its title said, "Written by himself," but scholarship does not establish that Brown physically wrote the manuscript alone. It is better understood as a work he co-created through an unidentified amanuensis. Over time, his public life expanded beyond the formal abolitionist circuit. Surviving playbills and scholarship document work as an actor, magician, mesmerist, lecturer, and performer. The man once concealed from every handler now built a career by directing the attention of rooms full of people. That reversal is an interpretation. The career itself is documented. Brown returned to the United States in 1875 with his later wife, Jane, and members of their family. He continued performing, later lived in Canada, and was documented in Toronto from 1886. He died there on June 15, 1897, and was buried in the Toronto necropolis. The record follows him across an ocean and back through abolitionist testimony, panorama, magic, mesmerism, and family performance. It shows a life far larger than the dimensions of the crate that made him famous. But the box did not reverse the event that made Brown enter it. The accessible evidence does not establish what later became of Nancy or the children sold away in 1848. We cannot turn that absence into reunion, death, abandonment, or a simple choice Brown refused to make. We can say that he survived. We can say that he made the escape speak, in books, images, lectures, and performances, for decades. A freight system once moved him because it saw a package. Brown's long public life made the person inside impossible to forget. And still, freedom did not return everyone slavery had taken.